Hello, fellow traders everywhere. Out of Houston, coming to you with your weekend update. It's Sunday, and you see the Sunday daily exchange right here, so you can exchange your ideas, what trades you're thinking about next week. This is all part of the members blog, and it's a very powerful thing to do. We had, obviously, Saturday, we had a number of comments come in, and we're continuing to have comments come in on this blog because it's just for members. I think you'll really enjoy it. So let's go to the portfolio manager and let's see how these markets did for last week and what we think is going to happen next week. So going to the portfolio manager, the S&P 500, you can see right here we have a plus 55, which means it's a trading range right now. It's not a defined uptrend or downtrend, but sort of middle trend, a trading range. So you can see also with the S&P 500, the Dow, and the Nasdaq, all in a plus 55 mode, as is silver, and only gold's in a very defined trend right now. You've got copper in a 55 mode, you've got crude oil in a 50 mode, and so on. Really not a lot of trends until you get to the Reuters and some of the other trends we're looking at today. So let's just take a look at the S&P, starting with there. So here we are. This is a weekly chart going back 1 year approximately. We've put the Donchian trade channels, which is right here, and also the parabolic, PASR, and the triangle. So looking at this market very closely, you can see quite clearly that the trend is up based on this level. And let me change the color of this just for 1 second, clear that off the screen. Let's get a nice red that we like to use. So the trend is up right here, and you've also come back to an area which is right here, which is previous resistance, and it's now acting as support. Now we have a plus week. For the week, the market was up, very small, but it was positive and sort of negated this down, sharp down week. This coming week is going to be very interesting because, one, you're below the PSAR, this little stop and reverse, and also you're sort of, I expect the market is going to begin to consolidate because it is a little bit oversold, and very similar to this period here, and here, and here. So generally speaking, the market tends to bounce when you're in this sort of period. You can see it at a bounce, and of course here a bigger bounce. So generally speaking, I think we're in a period where we should get some sort of correction here and then start moving back up again, but this is to be watched very carefully. Clearly the 1400 level is a big barrier right now for this S&P 500 index. So let's clear the screen, go to our next market. And the next market we're going to be looking at, we'll look at the Dow, of course, and we'll do that right now. So actually the Dow fared a little bit better. We actually closed up the week 1.39%, which is a pretty good close. Plus we took out the high from the previous week. So this high we see here at 13,131.36 is going to be an important high for this coming week. Nonetheless, the trend is plus 55. Now what that means is this. So just clear is the long-term trend, which is the monthly, is positive. The short-term trend, which is the weekly, is negative. And when you have the two in conflict like that, it gives you probably close to a 55 score. It means that intermediate-term trend traders right here should be out of the market. Longer-term trend traders right here remain long. So that's what we're looking for. That's how we see the market right now. Sort of mixed bag. 55 gives you a trading range score. And I think that's what we have so far. You're in a sort of somewhat oversold condition, similar to here and here. Now remember, we're doing this on a weekly chart. And that's the important thing to remember. So I think we could see this market maybe sort of go sideways here, but I think eventually we're going to see the market move higher. And we still have a 1550 to 1600 target zone for this market. So let's see how that plays out. Actually, that's on the S&P 500, I beg your pardon. But generally speaking, I think it's going to be the same pretty much on the Dow. The Dow closed pretty well. So let's close it off the screen and go to our next market. And the next market we're going to be looking at is going to be the Nasdaq. Now the Nasdaq didn't do quite as well as the Dow. You can see it actually closed lower for the week, largely in part due to Apple, which didn't close well for the week either. So, but we are now in an oversold condition. Can we go lower? Yes, of course we can. But Generally speaking, the longer-term trend on Nasdaq is positive, while the short-term, intermediate-term trend is negative. So let's see how that plays out. But generally speaking, I would say probably the 2000 area, 2,900 area is going to be offering pretty good support on this market. So let's go move on, and we'll be looking at silver. Silver is becoming more and more tight in terms of the way you can see it right now. It's just, you know, boom, 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 very, very tight. This market's contracting. Something's going to happen pretty quickly with this market, but you've got your PSAR, which is right here, which is right below the lows of the last week, and I think that's one of the key things to look at. Plus, you've got your oversold condition just beginning to turn up. So I think the potential exists that we're going to see this market turn up. You've got a daily green, which is positive. You've got a monthly green, which is very positive. The only one that's out of place right now is the weekly, and that's red, giving you this plus 55, indicating a trading range. So I think this is something to watch very, very carefully, because I think we can see this market actually do better. And one of the things we were looking at, one of the patterns we were looking at, was this type of pattern on a close-only basis. So we're sort of on the right part of the shoulder here. This is the head, of course, and this is the left shoulder. So, and this is going to be somewhere on a close-only basis. This, if you draw this line across here, close only, and I think over a close over 36. I will view as positive. That'll be a positive sign for this market, in my opinion. So let's clear the screen, go to our next market. The next market, of course, is going to be gold. And the gold market has, I think, disappointed a lot of gold bulls. It didn't close up for the week. It actually goes down almost 1%. Not a big move, but nonetheless, this market is continuing to disappoint a lot of people. But I'm not that disappointed, and I'll show you the reason why. I think the pattern here is the one I would look at, and the one I'm looking at right now is very, very similar to silver, and that is drawing a line from the highs, boom, then you go down like this. So this market starts to go up. I think it confirms this pattern. A move over this is what we consider to be the neckline. They move over this area here, which comes in, I would say, around 1750, somewhere like that. Is going to be, it's $100 higher, remember, than we are right now. I will think will be a pretty good sign for this market going higher. So again, you're in a situation where you're oversold, similar to here and also similar to here. So, and of course here. So generally speaking, I think we can see this market moving higher, and I think it's just a matter of time. But I think the 1620 level is a low. And that's, I think, a major low. So let's see how this plays out. But generally speaking, 1750 is the line in the sand for the neckline. If we go over this level, then we're off to the races. So let's clear the screen and go to our next market. The next market we're going to be looking at is copper. And copper has actually put in a pretty good week. It's been, as you probably remember, it's been pretty much beaten up. But this past week, it was up actually almost over 2.23%. You're coming from a very oversold condition, and I think that's something to look at. Very oversold here, and it's a little bit of a divergence because you made new lows this week, but the market did not make new lows in the divergences. Now look at these previous points in the divergences, and you can see what happened after. This is obviously a pretty good one, as is this one. A little early, but nonetheless, it would look as though we were sort of stabilize. The other thing I noticed too with the copper is this, and let's just clear the screen, is that we have had a pretty much a Fibonacci pullback from the highs. That's not what I wanted to do, but let me just get the thing I need to do for the Fibonacci retracement, and here we are. So we go down to the lows. You can see we've come into this 50%, 61.8%, very close to those levels. So generally speaking, the copper market should begin to nest out around here and then begin moving higher in line with the monthly trade triangle. So let's clear the screen and go to our next market. The next market is going to be the crude oil market. Now, crude oil, if you look at this crude oil market, it's pretty fascinating to me right now. And here's the reason why. Because we've actually, for the past 3 weeks, you can see boom, like this. The 105 level right here is going to be key this coming week. If we close over 105 anytime this week, then we're going to take out the highs. And then I think we'll take this market up to the 120, 125 level. You've got a monthly that's very positive. Only the weekly and the daily are negative at the moment, but this can change pretty rapidly. But certainly the 105 level and maybe 105.35 is going to be important as well. Look at how the market made new lows here and how we didn't do that in the momentum Williams %R indicator, which is an oscillator. And you can see again, here's the market when it made the lows here and made the lows here, and didn't do quite so well there, but generally speaking the trend was down. The longer term trend was down. It only turned up back here. This is when the trend turned, and look at how we caught this one and oversold. So again, I think this is a very important level to look at, the sort of divergence, and we'll see how this thing plays out next week. So let's clear the screen and let's go to our next market. Next market we're going to look at probably the USO, if I'm not mistaken, and let's just do that. So here we are, it's the USO, it's an ETF, pretty much the same pattern there. Key level to watch in this particular stock is going to be the 40.13 level, and let me just write that down. 40.13 is going to turn our weekly positive, so 40.13, currently trading at 39.39, so we're looking at 61.74 points, so plus 74 points is going to be a kicker in for this market. We get this market back up here like this and close, then you've got a turn. You've also got the weekly kicking in, which means the trend will pick up momentum on the upside. Again, oversold here, much like the crude. So clear the screen and we'll go to our next market. The Eurodollar, pretty much a flat affair. We've drawn the lines and we've said where the market's going to go in terms of the trend, and where the line in the sand is, of course, is the 130 level right here. The move under 130 is pressure city. Will take the market down to probably the 125 level, but right now you've got resistance at 134, and I think that's going to be probably enough to hold this market on the upside. So let's see what happens, but stranger things have happened. It's the elections in Europe, the beginning of the elections, and that's always going to be tricky to find out how people want to go with their parties. So let's go to our next market, and the next market look at that is the CRB Reuters Jeffries Index. This had a negative week, as is for the past 5 weeks. It's had a negative week. My guess is we're going to have a positive week this week because we're coming from an area that has been previous support. So the 295 area, we're currently trading at 301, is pretty much support back here and back here. We're very heavily oversold, no question about that. So I think there's a good chance we'll see this market improve. For the week, we closed down just about 0.5%, not a big deal, but nonetheless, it was a negative week. And we have all of our indicators, the weekly and the monthly and the daily, all negative. So let's see how this plays out, and let's see how we can make some money this coming week. Don't forget to go to the daily exchange and post what you think is going to happen about markets next week and what you're looking at. Share it with other members. I think you'll really have a good time talking about that and exchanging ideas. It's all meant to create a brain power that's larger than everyone's. So let's get that started. I'm Adam Hewison for Market Club. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. It's very wet here on the northeast, and we're expecting rain all day today. So have a great weekend and enjoy.